Imagine being so fodder as a main antagonist that you don't even get beat by the titular characters. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do suit, have it on, and keep it on me at all times. And fun fact, here we are to do a breakdown and review to chapter 231 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, which is known as the conclusion. And, I'll readily admit, I do have, like, mixed thoughts. I want to keep it in my thoughts, though. Sometimes after I record the live reaction, we check it over on Patreon for those $1 monthly become members, so it's $3 a month. It's a 20-minute live reaction to this very chapter. But usually after I record a live reaction, I'll, like, run to the places of discussion real quick to be like, hey, what is the general consensus on the chapter? But I do want to go in, like, almost completely blind and uninfluenced in terms of, like, just giving you my immediate thoughts on it. So, overall, I think I'm leaning more positive. Here's the thing. This is one of those cases that I bring up pretty constantly, I say, with Four Knights and a couple of the series at this point, where it's like chapter versus narrative, right? Because I think ultimately at its core, I really, really like the chapter on its own, like in a vacuum, especially when taking into account all. But like that's the thing, I can't look at the chapter fully in a vacuum because it is obviously in a series of continuous nature. So like, it is back and forth in my mind on whether or not I like this chapter is good. Especially for someone like me who read and really, really liked original Seven Deadly Sins. Even if I doubt certain things that happen in this chapter. Like it is good. But for like the narrative as a whole, man, it's like it really is the macro versus the micro here. Where I kind of don't like. Well, that's the thing, I don't know. I'm not sure if I don't like it or if I'm very mixed on, because I'm not exactly sure what the effects of this will be on the macro. But in the micro, there are a lot of things in this chapter I like, but let's stop talking speculatively. Let's hop right into chapter 231, the conclusion. Funny thing to think about this group here is that this technically was our main trio for, like, till Bond's introduction. I was gonna say for like a while, but not really too long. I forget when Bond is introduced, but this technically wasn't the main trio. Main character, female lead, deuteragonist, unironically. And crazy to think that this little deuteragonist right here is older than literally almost every single character we've seen on the cute guy side combined. Yeah, I want you to think about it. The only character now older than this creature is Chaos itself, and presumably the Demon King. I think Hawk is probably now older than the Supreme Deity. We'll get into that though. But regardless, hopping in the chapter itself, we see that Cath has genuinely zero clue what's going on as he goes, Mild, King of Purgatory. I've never even heard of that. Which is hilarious to me. Because I don't know how how Cath has been getting Purgatory Beasts or setting up those Purgatory contracts. I would say it's all Rothus, because Rothus has the Gatekeeper ability. But we do know that, like, Rothus only appeared, like, he became a part of Camelot and started just training, I'd say, a bit into Camelot's existence, because we know he was recruited by an already Camelot and Ironside who already had Deodora, and Deodora was like a few years old by the time Rothus and Turret actually joined the family. I don't think it's implied that Turret and Rothus had their magic innately. They trained and unlocked it. So, like, unless Cath really didn't have any other way to Purgatory, which he should, right? He's wielding a good portion of chaos, right? Opening portals between the realms shouldn't be too difficult. But then again, he never just brute forces his way into any of the other realms, and I think about it. It's always through some means of trickery. But then again, he never goes himself. It's hard to tell how much Cath actually knew and interacted with Purgatory. It's entirely likely I thought he was sealed there, but maybe he wasn't. But regardless, he may have not gone there that often. So it's hilarious to think that Cath has kind of just been, like, pulling blindly and not really knowing what's going on in the place he was born, quote unquote. Which is hilarious. I mean, that happens, though. Sometimes you don't visit your hometown for a while. And a bunch of things happen, and you're like, when did all this transpire? And yeah, a whole lot transpired in Purgatory, as Hawk, or Mild, is now king. But regardless, we see that Cath is starting to immediately mutate back into his hybrid form now that his Chaos Guard has been destroyed, and all the Chaos power that he crystallized is essentially being refused back into him. And we see that ultimately, Hawk goes, I was gonna give him the super deep voice. In fact, hold on, let me check something. I don't think anyone commented on the voice I gave Hawk. Let me do one last checky, because I can't give the, I don't think I can give him the super deep voice. Let me see. 4 nights of the apocalypse. Hips. Bring it to me. Let me see that thing. All right, no, don't comment on the voice. So I'm gonna give him the Hawk voice. I can't do the deep voice. Sorry about that. But let's see. Oh, I've seen that face somewhere before. But whatever. Let me say something else. That is interesting. I guess it has been 10 million years for him. I don't remember him being at the Cath fight. Like, that's a weird, like, I'm trying to think. Was he there? I don't think so. Because, like, he had a whole thing after the whole, like, Demon King. Well, that was after the Demon King fight. He had the whole thing of, like, feeling inadequate. I don't remember. I wonder where he would have seen Cath's face before. Maybe Cath was intentionally going in there, but then again, how would he not know? Like, if he encountered Hawk, how would he not know about Hawk? But regardless, we see that he says, but whatever, let me say something else. I'm also known as... This hole's too small. Also known as... Also known as... He's so big. He's so big, bro. He's so big. He's so rotund. He's so chunky, bro. He's so chunky. Well, you know what, though? I will admit... He did good. He did good overall in terms of, like, just maintaining his shape and upscaling. Like, I always think about this. Whenever I look at, like, younger pictures of me, and I'm talking, like, young, like, darn near baby. I'd say not baby, right? Like, newborn me and current me don't look anything alike. I was a jacked up looking newborn. Like, I look, I really... I forget how the conversations came up, but my mom was showing me, like, my newborn baby pictures, and I'm like, man... That's a face only a mother could love. And she was like, even I struggle with that. But I was like, whoo! I was very, very ugly as a newborn. But luckily enough, when I became like a baby, my features shifted or something like that. I popped out a little bit rough. But regardless, like, I can see a sort of weird continuity of self from like age 2 onwards. Like, obviously, the only thing that's different is that my face got like less compressed, ironically. Then it like widened out to get as compressed as baby me. But then like, when I've lost a little bit of weight, it slid back down. So now like, from 2 on, there is a real continuity of self. I've just gotten bigger. Like, I've scaled up in terms of, like, weight and height. And that's kind of the same thing that happened to Hawk. He's still, like, the exact same design. Nothing's changed for him. The only thing that has changed is he lost, like, the earring that he had. He doesn't have that anymore. But he still has the tattoo, the 4-leaf clover on him. He's still the exact same shape. He's still the exact same size. So he just got bigger. And notably, for 10 million years, he didn't get that much bigger. Right? We don't know. At least I don't think we know. And my dumb little fanfic about what if Elizabeth betrayed the Goddess Clan, I kind of assume that the Supreme Deity and the Demon King didn't actually leave Hawk Mama in purgatory that long, because I like the excuse I make in that story, which I still need to finish this recording. I have it done. I need to finish recording and actually upload that. But regardless, the excuse I make in that story for like the clans not knowing about chaos is because specifically the Supreme Deity and the Demon King came to a consensus and were like, you can't leave it in purgatory because he keeps making stuff there. Bring it into the real world and then just let it wander there, because sure, because the real world has a slower time flow. Thusly, Hawk Mama wouldn't really get any bigger, but at the same time, Hawk Mama isn't seemingly confirmed to get any bigger, because we do know, at least according to some of the canon lore from Prisoners of the Sky, I think the lore, at least of Prisoners of the Sky, is canon, because like that gives us the whole Mel versus Mael fight, or at least its backstory chapter does. But in that, it's confirmed that the Great Oshiro is literally just Hawk Mama, Chaos. So like, Hawk Mama didn't grow, but it is interesting to see one of Hawk Mama's creations, aka one of Chaos's creations, Hawk, grow to the same size, if not bigger than Hawk Mama, but keep the exact same physical form. He's timeless in that sense. And honestly, Hawk being basically immortal does make sense. And it is hilarious. I'll get to the whole age thing and how he kind of gaps everybody here now in a second. But you see, he goes, also known as Sploosh, which is hilarious. That implies that he's either so heavy that the ground essentially becomes water, because like, what ground splooshes, and or he himself is splooshy. So big and rotund and so soft. Like you could pat his side and be like a water balloon. Like have you ever seen one of those like really flexible water balloons? Not the ones that get like super duper taut, but like the water balloons that you can kind of like maneuver around. That's basically what Hawk is, if that's sploosh is coming from him. But we see that Cath goes, yeah! As Elizabeth looks on to see thicko Hawk and go, I'm so glad you showed up for us. Now, this is one of the things where I'm sitting here like, do I dock point? Well, I won't go into it just yet. I mean, I can, because like Hawk destroyed the Chaos Guard. I'll go into it in a second, but just think of, let this idea linger in your mind. If they had round started with Hawk instead of playing all these games, and had actually, decently evacuated the citizens and not just put them to the outside of Leonis, think about how easy it would have been to defeat Cath. Just put that in your mind for now. We'll get into it in a second. But with it being the case, Elizabeth is so happy to see that. I'm so glad that you showed up for us, which is very, very sweet. I wish these two, and I'll say this, one critique I do have for the chapter that I can say now, and I'll reinforce later. I wish Hawk at least gave an acknowledgement to Elizabeth, right? Like, obviously, Hawk does have bonds with realistically all the Sins. Obviously, his most prominent are Mel and Bon, but I'd still say most certainly he did have a bond with Elizabeth. And I know he doesn't have any time or context. Literally, he's only in the mortal realm for about, like, probably 3 minutes total, right? Because after this point, he comes in, he does the Hawk Stomp, and then he's going to leave because he's like, a minute has passed, I gotta go back. And then he does one final attack and then leaves. So he's been gone for like, he's been here for like 2 minutes at most. So obviously he doesn't really have context for Elizabeth. He clearly doesn't even need perfect time. So he didn't take any damage in this interaction. So he wouldn't even feel Elizabeth's magic coursing through him. And we don't, like, it's hard to tell what Hawk, like, can do now. And what Hawk even does back in Purgatory as the whole king thing. But, like, regardless, he may not even be able to, whoa, why is my, I'm so sorry. How do I, drink water, folks. But I don't even know, like, can he sense magic? I know he eats things and, like, gains properties of them, but I don't know if he can actually sense magic. So he may not even be able to sense Elizabeth, but it's a shame that these two don't get an interaction at all. Elizabeth is here, literally dying, but doesn't get to speak to her hawky little boy, even though he's now the hawky big boy. The hawkiest boy of them all. But regardless, we see that he declares himself the Great Hawk, King of Leftovers. But see what I mean? His design is exactly the same. The only thing that didn't change is that seemingly the tag that was on him in the original series is gone. But everything else is still there. He's the exact same design, just scaled up. And while part of me is like, I kind of don't like that, it makes sense. And I think I still do like it. Like, ultimately, the thing about Chaos and its creatures, and even just Chaos itself, it's meant to kind of be immutable, right? Like, time, seemingly enough, is not really meant to be a factor to it. Time is something that happens around Chaos, not to Chaos, right? Kind of like how... Not really, though, because we're affected by, like, gravity and time and all that stuff. But that's basically how it is for Chaos and its creations. The only reason Wild is presumably dead is because, you know, he burnt a whole bunch of his life force. That is interesting to imply that he did have a set life force. And it does imply that, once again, the deities probably just had more of that Chaos juice infused into them. Considering the Demon King was over 1 billion years old, and, like, he was fine. But regardless, now that I think about it, though, how old was Hawk and Wild? And when were they born? I don't think we have context for that, because the Demon King did take Hawk when he was young and send him into the real world in order to watch over Meliodas. I don't know. Because for that to be the case, Hawk Mama, like, maybe Hawk Mama, maybe I have to change that part in the fanfic now that I think about it. I'm not sure when did Chaos leave Purgatory? I don't actually know. It has to be, like, before the events of the story. Like, it has to be at most at earliest, or no, at latest, like 26 years ago. Or no. 18-year time skip plus 10-year pre-time skip. So, like, it has to be 28 years ago, I think, is the latest he could have, like, kicked. I feel like that had to be a joint decision by the deities. I highly doubt the Demon King just randomly kicked out Hawk Mama. I don't know. It's weird, though. But regardless. In fact, no, I think, I don't actually have any idea how old Hawk was when he was booted, and or how old Wild was when they were born, and where Chaos was at that point. I have no idea for that. But regardless, Chaos creations do seemingly have some sort of set time limit, but the Demon King was able to live over 1 billion years. We do have to remember, the Demon King is probably the outside of Chaos itself, obviously. Even then, that's debatable, considering where Chaos seemingly spent a lot of its time. But the Demon King is arguably the oldest character in the series, as far as we know, like, named character with actual speaking lines, because he spent the 3,000-year time skip in Purgatory. That's over, like, I forget, like, I think it's like 1.5 billion years he spent in Purgatory. In comparison to Hawk, who has only spent a certain amount that we'll get into in a second, and every other character ever who's like still only in the thousands of years of age. But with it being the case, the Great Hawk, King of Leftovers, shows up and mogs on Cath, who has gone back to his weird Chaos Beast hybrid form. But with it being the case, we do get to see that everyone is absolutely blown away by the thick of thing known as Hawky Walkie, as Melius goes, "Hawk, you outclassed yourself there!" And even Bond is like, "Darn, boss, I thought I was the strongest there is. Who are you talking? Who are you feeling like?" And King is like, I'm this fodder? That's our pig, huh? Which I guess must be like, especially considering we gotta realize how much the script has flipped and how powerful Hawk must feel, right? Like, what's a good example of this? We don't have like a sixth sense, but like, I'll do it like an equivalent to weight, right? Like, imagine you pick up a weight and it's like 20 pounds, right? And you pick up another one, it's like 25. And you pick up another one, it's like 30. And then, if you're feeling fancy, you pick another one that's like 50, right? And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a weight that you last knew to be like maybe half a pound shows up and is like 1,000 pounds. That's basically what Hawk did, right? Obviously, Hawk was very durable and very survivable. Like, he was basically immortal. Basically. Because what? He lived the Henderson Dark Snow at the beginning of the series. He lived Attacks from the Demon King. He just lived a whole lot. But in that same case, he was relatively weak, right? What? I believe he had like a power level of what, 30? I think. So that's where they last saw him. He does show up at the end of Cursed by Light, which should have been 6 months, which should have been like a few couple of years. Like it should have been like a few thousand, I think. But no, way more than a few thousand. Maybe in like that may be part of the million right there. Does that math, mate? Is that math? No, it doesn't math. But it was like, yeah, it doesn't math. But it'd be a couple of thousand years. He does show up at the end of Cursed by Light, which is strange. Like in him and Wild both, but they both went back. But with that being the case, presumably their last interaction with him, he was much weaker, and now he's so much stronger. And even Diane, who was one of the ones that actually have a pretty funny relationship with Hawk Mom, was like, "Huh, he's grown as large as his mom, hasn't he?" Which is crazy to think about, because Hawk Mama was chaos. And to think that Hawk actually could reach those sizes is impressive. This does still continue on my idea, though. Man, Wild really was a fraud. Wild was absolutely fraud. Because think about it like this, right? As far as we know, and hold on, let me think. When did Mel and Hawk meet? I need to get my timeline stuff down. When did Mel and Hawk meet? Because we know Wild was alive and still small at the time of Hawk being sent into the real world. Hawk was sent into the real world to watch over Mel. Oh, well, actually. Because what, it's a 10-year time skip? I think it's a 10-year time skip between... Yeah, I think it's 10 years between the sins being separated and the actual start of the narrative. So 10 years. That's about half of... I'm trying to think. That's about half as long as the time skip now into Four Nights. Wild was in Purgatory that entire time, just fighting the Demon King. So, in 10... Well, yeah. Wild must have just had garbage potential now I think about it. Because if I'm not mistaken, if he had 10 years in Purgatory to, like, prep and battle the Demon King, essentially have the perfect sparring partner, and he didn't get any bigger... Like, remember, 10 years in Purgatory time would be like... Am I really gonna do the calc? We're gonna do the calc. 10 years in Purgatory time. Let me think. Where's the calc? There's the calc. Okay, hold on. If he had 10 years in Purgatory, fighting the Demon King, then Hawk should be... Or no, Wild should have been 10 times 365 times... Because it's 10 times 10 years, 365 days in a year, times 24 hours in a day, times 365 times 24 hours in a day, times... Brain? Why are we lagging right now? Hold on. 10 times 365 times 24 for how many hours in a day? Each minute. There's 60 hours in a minute times 60. I think that's it. Times 60. That'll be the result. Yeah. So Wild had over 5 million years, seemingly, unless I did my math wrong, had over 5 million years to get way stronger and just bully the Demon King, as we see Hawk will go on to bully something stronger than the Demon King. But he just didn't. He failed. Wow, you're kind of buns, man. They're kind of booty cheeks, man, because Hawk really is the little bro that could, because he's just way stronger. But with that being the case, we see that Hawk turns around and is like, oh, hey, look at all these familiar little piglets, which is genuinely hilarious because they are really tiny to him now. And we see that Meliodas jokes, you're way past market size now, ain't you? Which is hilarious. If only for the fact that Mel was always threatening to sell Hawk because he didn't know what Hawk initially was, which is very, very cool. I still do like that Mel, like, as knowledgeable as Mel was in the original series, I do like that he had basically no idea about Hawk. Like that, Hawk's whole existence was still a complete mystery to him because he didn't have any context for Chaos. That still is really, really cool. One of my favorite aspects of the original series to look back on is how knowledgeable yet unknowledgeable Mel was in terms of major things like Hawk's entire existence. But we see Hawk declare, it's the weight of 10 million years. And Mel says, well, it's only been 18 here. 1 minute in this world is equivalent to 1 year in purgatory. So, the thing I was talking about, and the reason why I say Hawk gets the little bro everybody, and is technically the oldest character in the series outside the Demon King, is because I don't think we have context or like an age for the Supreme Deity. We know that Chandler and Cusack are both 6,000. I believe Ludishel is 10,000. I think Mael is like, he's actually relatively young by goddess ages, I think. Hold on. Let me see, does the wiki give his age? Hold on, I'm going to check. Let me see, Mael. Let me just do Mael. Arcane, perfect. Mael, how old are you, Mael? You bum. Let me see. Yeah, 350. Oh no, 3,500. He's 3,500. So yeah, and I think Ludishel, let me double check Ludishel. I'm pretty sure he's 10,000. He's older than Tarmiel and Sariel, who I think are 7,000. I see Ludishel. How old are you, buddy? How old are you, buddy? How old are you? Where's your age? Where's your age? 6,000, 6,000. Okay. So yeah, he's as old as Chandler and Cusack, who are also 6,000. Who do I think was 10,000? Tarmiel and Sariel are not. I think they're... hold on, let me see. Tarmiel... But essentially, my point is, right, we have to remember, Mel, despite living a very, very long time, you know, he lived the 3,000-year time skip, and he then had, and I did not realize Tarmiel was 710. Get him off the Archangels and get him on the basketball court. But regardless, he's 5,000. I think Sariel's the same age. But my point is, Hawk did live 10 million years in purgatory, 10 million actual years from his perspective, timeline-wise. Mel is at best, I think, like 4,500, if you include all the time he was stuck in purgatory. We don't know how long he was in purgatory on his previous visits when he was having his motions eaten by the Demon King. But still, mentally, Mel's only like 4,500. Bon is only like over 1,000. Diane's not even 1,000 yet, I don't think. Is she? I know King's over 1,000. We're not going to check every age. My point is, Hawk, you could take all the you could combine all the ages of the known speaking good guy characters, and I don't even think it equal to 1/10 of Hawk's existence. That's how bad. Like, it may not even be a 100th. Because to be in a 100th, that'd have to be the weight of 10 million years. So just take 2 zeros off. That'd have to be a million years. And I don't think any of them lived as long enough to get that. The only character older than Hawk now is presumably Cass itself. Maybe. Maybe, just because we don't have context for its timeline. And the Demon King, because he just spent longer in purgatory, right? Like, Demon King spent 3,000 years. But still, crazy to think. Getting a little bit insane to think that Hawk is now the oldest protagonist character by a long shot too. And by proxy, he's also very clearly the most powerful. As we see Hawk completely disregarding the chaos creature that he just one-shot, as he goes, right, now back to those scraps. Wait, this is all of them? But they do hit the spot, which has everyone literally speechless. And once again, I do love that we get the perspective of the 4 evils, because Hawk is another chaos creature, at least another spawn of chaos, just like their king was. And like I mentioned, Hawk has to feel overwhelmingly powerful, right? Like, just casually, his existence must be like a numbing headache, right? Like, have you ever been overstimulated before? Not in a freaky way. Well, even in a freaky way. You ever been overstimulated before? I feel like that must be how Hawk feels to anyone with magical 6 senses. Obviously, they aren't going to address it too much, but I assume the speechlessness of all the humans is like, especially the 4 evils, is like, there are things that powerful? There are things, like, especially since they've been sensing the battle between the sevendeadlysins and chaos, and clearly Hawk just clears them all. His very existence must be like someone putting an anvil on your head and saying, stand there, or even walk around. Very, very painful, or at least very, very heavy. And we see that Gotha says, guys, look out! As we see high in the sky, butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. They all look In a book, reading rain blast. As Cath completely gives up on any of this fair fight nonsense and goes, "Why must I be constantly interrupted like this? That's it. No more of this clever..." I love how he does glaze a little bit there. He's like, enough of this clever nonsense. He didn't just say enough of this nonsense. It's clever nonsense. As if he admits, like, "I'll admit, I'll keep catching me off guard in ways I don't expect. Respect on you. But that's it. No more of this clever nonsense. Time to wipe Britannia off the map for good." I respect Nakaba's just absolute commitment to not acknowledging the rest of the world. Like, this man has gone on to introduce how many realms? The mortal realm, the fairy realm, the demon realm, the celestial realm, the world beyond, purgatory, the capital of the dead. I feel like I'm missing one. I think the domain of God technically counts, it's like a sub-creation in the celestial realm, thanks to the supreme deity's power. But regardless, legit refuses to address the rest of the world. What do you mean you're just gonna wipe out Britannia? Are there no humans on the rest of the continent, on the rest of the planet? No, on the rest of the continent, because we know all Britannia is just modern day London, right? Like, that's literally what Britannia is. Nakaba has confirmed that. And we do know the rest of the world does exist. I don't think we've seen planet shots, but like we know it does exist. So you just wipe it off Britannia. Cath, I thought you wanted to destroy everything. Cath, what happened to you, man? Like, the fall off may genuinely have to be studied for the history books, bro. Like, this is genuinely insane how one, the Britannia focus, and two, Cath's bubbiness. But speaking of Cath's bubbiness, we see a rumble run through the land as light, seemingly light infused with darkness, or at least, well, probably just light, thrashes and destroys everything. Donnie defends Elva. We see and guarding Nasians. We see all the four evils crouch and huddle together as Beltreep says, we're done for. Because obviously it seems hopeless. That, you know, though, I think now I think about it, I was talking about how heavy and like oppressive Hawk's presence must feel. But at the same time, if they're feeling Hawk right now, and then they're looking at that and be like, oh no, this is very dangerous. Maybe they can't sense Hawk. Maybe Hawk is weird. Maybe Hawk doesn't have like an active magical sensor or like magical presence. Maybe it's literally just all in the gains, because I think the next thing he does is raw air pressure. Maybe not, though, because a literal donut appears. But regardless, we see that Hawk, looking up at this, isn't even slightly perturbed. Like, he isn't bothered at all. He's like, oh, hey, it's been 1 minute, so I gotta head back. And naturally, Bond is like, right at this moment! Which is hilarious. It's very funny, because, like, obviously everything's going bad, but in Hawk's mind, he's like, well, I do have a whole kingdom to run. And it has been a minute. Come on now, man. You know this. Yeah, Purgatory's gonna be missing for over a year now. It's a huge deal. One quick question, though, and it does have to tie into Hawk's growth and to, you know, Hawk's role as king. Buddy, what do you do? Like, first things first, what did you eat down there? Did you eat your people? Right? Because as far as we know, I don't think any of the, like, souls trapped in Purgatory provide sustenance. We never saw Wild eat them. We never saw Bonnie and Meliodas eat them. And we know Hawk likes to eat. But, like, unless those specifically are subjects and he eats the random animals, like, dog, what are you eating? How are you doing? And the second thing is, what do you mean by your king? You have a government over there? How did that happen? Like, I know some of the beasts we've seen from Purgatory are, like, apparently exceptionally intelligent. But, like, how did you convene them? Especially considering Purgatory is so large and vast and, you know, literally a wasteland. Hawk, how did you do that? What do you do? Hawk, what is your existence, bro? But regardless, because we're never going to get those questions answered. He literally shows up and he's going to disappear well before the end of the chapter. But we see that Cath says, I'm going to smash you all to pieces, and that pig too, which implies that Cath can't sense. Well, yeah, I don't think Piglet, Lord. Wrong series, not Winnie the Pooh. But I don't think Cath nor anyone can actually sense Hawk's power. Because now I think about it, these two lines in tandem, like, I don't think Cath would believe he could do that if he could actually sense how powerful Hawk is. I mean, we see Hawk immediately form a donut around his nose. I don't know, maybe this is part of, like, his latent chaos powers awakening, but he forms a donut and launches End of Meal, which may be a pure energy blast or may just be straight hot air from Hawk's body that, like, pushes everyone back and then blows a massive hole, not just through Cath's giga, like, explosion spear. Explosion? Why did I say explosion like that? His massive explosion spear, but also just blows off his numerous arms, right? I didn't talk about this design all too much. I'll admit, I should go back and mention this at least. I don't know. If someone, like, if this is a reference to something, someone please let me know. Well, I've been able to decipher Cath's, like, regular design, the big, bestial, multi-armed, human body, cat-headed, Arthur Cowlickin form. I don't get what this is. Like, it's just all the different hands reaching up. It looks creepy and cool and like that in that very Nakaba-esque way. But I'm not sure, unlike where before I can usually try and tell like the storytelling behind a character with their design, I have no idea what this design is other than Cath being desperate. But regardless, end of meal launches out, annihilates all those extra arms, and Cath looks up, bamboos him, and goes, "No!" And we see Hawk say, "You can call that my parting gift." Now, the real question. I know the donut pops up, but was that hot air or was that actually energy? Does Hawk just have an end of meal Kamehameha? Does this, like, unironically, think about the implications of Hawk having a beam. Think about Hawk actually annihilating Cell. Actually, depending on how you scale, like, Cath for the creation feat or Chaos for the creation feat, and how much Hawk would scale above that, because clearly he scales above Chaos Cath. Think about how dirty that this pig would do, like, every single universe ever. I saw someone ask, Hawk versus all the tail beasts at once. I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna be a wash. It's genuinely gonna be a wash, bro, because he's just too strong. He literally treats Cath like he's nothing, doesn't acknowledge him, doesn't really fear him at all, and just tells him to stop doing what he's doing, and then rolls out. He's just good with the sauce like that. But we see, now that Hawk has given them basically the perfect opening, Diane goes, "Captain!" as King and her get ready to attack, and Meliodas goes back into assault mode. One thing I didn't mention earlier, Meliodas randomly went back to base. I don't know why he loves doing this. Like, I get it, maybe it's a little bit tiring to maintain your higher forms, but Mel, now's the time to go back to base, buddy. But regardless, we see that in this case, Mel goes right back to assault mode and goes, "Yeah, this is gonna be it." And we see Gother, Mel, and Bon all locked in as they all lunge in together. Bon taking the lead, Diane falling right behind, Meliodas running in the middle, Gother in the back, King in the top right. I think this is a reference to the recent color page. I go check, but I actually do forget which page it's on. I don't want to take too much time, especially since I had to look up ages and stuff like that. But regardless, they all lunge forward. And we see that Hawk looks on and says, "Farewell, friends." Like, he literally doesn't even last out the chapter. But he goes, "Oof! Hey, and stop making riffs in Purgatory like it's going out of style. Got me?" And we see Diodora say, "Yes?" I do wonder how this interaction goes, though, with the time dilation. Like, which side takes priority, right? Like, does time slow down in Purgatory when a rift is open? Or is, like, still... how does that work? Because, realistically, even like, this sentence, if Hawk went through the other side, should be taking forever to actually be relayed to Diodora, but maybe Hawk is still locked to the main timeline? I don't know. But, like, Hawk could hear Cath just fine, even though seconds were passing in the real world. So you think, you know, a lot of time would be passing in the file. Right? What file? See, this is what happens when I record a little bit EP, bro. What file am I talking about? But regardless, I don't know. You'd think there'd be like some weird time interactions here, but I'm fine with it. That's like me being extra nitpicky. It could just be a thing when a rift opens, like time sort of stabilizes to the realm that the rift opened up in, right? So since the rift for Gatekeeper opened up in the real world, Hawk was still on real world time when the portal first opened and when he went back. And then once the portal closes, time flow resumes as normal for both parties involved. Or realistically, for the party from Purgatory in this case. But we see that Hawk just threatens Diodora, and Diodora's like, "Yes?" Which is very... it's genuinely hilarious. But I want you to think about something now that Hawk is gone. We're gonna get to the conclusion soon enough, I promise. But one thing I do want you to conceptualize and put in your head, if not for Diodora getting betrayed by Rothus and Turret, they would have lost. It is genuine, like, it is insane to think that ultimately Diodora getting giga traumatized by his own big brother figures absolutely annihilating him and removing him from existence. Like, the Seven Deadly Sins, Britannia, everything would have been lost to Cath. Because the conclusion they reach in this chapter is only thankful, or only able to be given to them because of Hawk's interference. They were not going to beat the Chaos Guard. Hawk would have rebuilt his magic force. Elizabeth would have perished, as we'll see by the end of this chapter. And the Sins would have died. Am I saying that would have been better? No. But I am sitting here like, wow, crazy to think that everything relied on Diodora. Because otherwise, no Diodora, no Hawk. Or no Diodora, no Diodora trauma, no Gatekeeper, No Hawk, no win. No win con. Because it's only after Hawk does his final last bit of damage and saves all Britannia that they can actually lunge in and do something. Because heaven forbid Mel just full counter the Large Spear. But with it being the case, we see they all lunge in, and Cath immediately, you know, our main villain, y'all. Our main antagonist, y'all. Hey, gang, we have this as our main antagonist. Starts to immediately run away as he goes,
Darn it! I need to rebuild my force again. No, I'll take Arthur's remaining force, his chaos, and get my revenge.
But we see that the instant he goes to escape, a massive wave of earth, including a building, comes down right on Cath, who goes, huh? As he gets crushed by a mighty Queen's Embrace, making him spit up a whole bunch of juice as he's buried underground. And I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna keep agenda pushing. A man's agenda never dies. I think this is all based Diane. I haven't seen a single Droll's dance, dog. Have you seen Diane's Droll's dance throughout the entire series? I think not, but forgot. Like, legit. So, base Diane, able to do some damage to a very powerful chaos creature. We love some good upscale. But regardless, we see Cath go, ugh! And Bond immediately blitzes in front of Cath and goes straight for him, going, whoa, and immediately assault hunts him, tearing Cath to ribbons, right? If Diane crushes him, Bond dices him and slices him up, breaks his jaw, slices his limbs even more after Hawk atomized him, does a whole bunch of insane maneuvers in this instant to completely eviscerate Cath, who goes, eh! After the assault hunt. And then we see King. And then we see King. Oh my word, King failure, bro. Yo, unironically, it is insane to think all this could have been avoided if King could have kept his fat mouth shut, bro. It is wild to think that Cath easily could have been handled. No Elizabeth death. No nothing. If very specifically. Very, very specifically. Oop. This is so insane, bro. This is so insane. Let me break it down some. I thought I'd go down to like a whole diatribe on that. Let me break it down somewhere. I say that Hawk was their only possible win con. And I do genuinely think that is true to a degree. But this is the whole macro versus micro thing again. Where technically, they probably could have won with what they had without Hawk. It's just that King let his big mouth run. He let his big mouth run, reminded Cath that Bond was human, and then time dipped him. And also, it didn't help that Bond was taking a sweet time with Cath, and so was Meliodas. They should have been eviscerating him as they're doing now and have been doing for the past chapter or so. But no, they had to fumble the bag, let Elizabeth die, and give us a Hawk cameo. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm always happy for a Hawk cameo. That's the Chekhov's gun that's been waiting to be fired. But regardless, man, King did all that, talked all that smack, did all these numbers, quote unquote, to hit Cath with a full power 4th form Sunflower and do surface level burn damage. His wife, his undanced wife, did more damage than King. So not only is King a bum who snitches on his own allies and helps the enemy, he's also a bum who snitches on his own allies, helps the enemy, and tickles toes, bro. That's all he does. He doesn't actually do any serious damage. He's literally a pillow puncher, bro. My heart! But we see that Cath gets absolutely eviscerated there and goes,
oh, this hurts.
Which I believe it does, but still, the level of damage he does relative to every other sin in this interaction except for Gother, man, King, man, it's not even like, do I even want to defend you anymore? I feel like it's definitely a losing or dying cause. Or like, not cause. But we see that Cath goes,
still, you can't kill me, as long as the power of chaos is within me. Wait, what is this, though? This terrible sense of foreboding. Like I'm doomed to fail no matter how often I try.
And Gother, finally, as Cath gets literally eviscerated, holes blown in him, finally possibly establishing Mel above Bond, at least in attack potency, considering this is all Bond. But then again, he's old. He's supposedly not, he doesn't get any weaker, and he is at perfect time right now, but he is old, so he only does this much. Meanwhile, Mel just casually bursts through him with a bunch of trillion darks, after taking a bunch of damage already, though. But Gother says, I have to join the ore farming, as he hits Cath with a, that is called fear. And we see that Cath looks up, right? He's looking for, and I do like this shot. I love this page, because you can see Cath is truly locked in thinking, I'll be fine. You can see like the little flames rising out of his eyes. But then you see the uncertainty, the fear, as holes get blown in him. And then you see specifically he wasn't paying attention to where the holes are coming from, as he then looks up to see Meliodas raining down on him with Trillion Dark. Just blowing massive chunks in Cath. So, Mel may be stronger, but I may be having to be stronger than Bond, I mean. Not stronger than Hawk. No one's stronger than Hawk. I wasn't lying. Hawk is strongest there is. But regardless, we see that Cath goes,
Fear?
as everything goes dark. Or not necessarily. As Nightmare Teller lands on this remaining piece of Cath. And Gother finally manages to add another sneaking of a god to his W record, as he basically traps Cath in eternity. As it goes, yes. 7 deadly sins combo strike. Nightmare sins. Every time you plot revenge against us in Britannia, the pain and fear you brought us will now torment you for all time. Wait, yep, I'd read that right? Will torment you for all time. Which is nice, right? I'm very happy Gother got to sneak his 3rd god overall, 5th time sneaking a god. At the same time, I do like seeing that they did manage to get one up on Cath. Obviously, though, Cath's actual death here is very vague and leaves it open for him to still be the main antagonist. I think we do kind of need him right now, because I don't think we really have anything set up except for that one prophecy from Bartra. But we see that Cath goes,
I don't want that. No.
And he immediately gets sliced in half. I'm not sure. I think this is Mel, but his eye gets sliced in half and then he disintegrates into fade. But with it being the case, we see that Meliodas says, and with that, all Britannia and its people are back with us. Don't you dare show your face around here again. And in that case, buddy. Do I go fully into the macro and the micro? Nah, I won't go fully into the macro and the micro just yet. I'll wait till this final page. Because I still have stuff to talk about, right? I didn't really go into it too much throughout the review, so let me talk about it in a sec. As we see Meliodas go back to base and look forlorn. Gother looks down, Diane looks down, King looks down, Bond looks forward because he's just straight moggy. Has his hands in his pockets and everything because he didn't really care that much about Elizabeth. But speaking of Elizabeth, she is laid out on the top of the castle, a feather flying away from her. These things happen. But Elizabeth is out. She's done. She's finished. Finito. And, of course, this now leaves Mel in the same predicament that Bond and King were. To be fair, they were kind of already in the predicament, but no, not Bond and King. Bond and Elaine. There we go. See? Lord. Bond and Elaine are in. Where now that Elizabeth has died and presumably gone into the capital of the dead, I don't think she ascended here. I think this is meant to be like her death, quote unquote. Mel either has to live out the rest of his possible multi-million year, possibly billion-plus year existence on his own, or he has to, move into the capital of the dead, let's say. Through less than savory means, but he could do that. But Elizabeth is done. Now, I'm gonna pick up the sort of worthiness, but I'm not gonna dole out worthiness just yet, because I do want to talk. I want to talk myself more into how I feel. So, why do I like this chapter on the micro, right? First things first, it is the firing of a massive Chekhov's gun, right? Like, technically, you could argue that's the last chapter, but especially with Hawk being this powerful and really being the savior of everything, yeah, it is a bit absurd, but from how everything's been set up, from Purgatory being the hyperbolic time chamber, to Hawk's insane potential in the original series, to a general brain? See, I mean, I was a bit of a comment, but see, don't record when tired, people. Don't record when tired. Don't record when you're eating, bro, because thoughts just leave. But essentially, a Chekhov's gun that's been waiting to be fired. It got fired. It got fired in spectacular fashion. Everything we know about Purgatory and Hawk's own high base potential in biology, this all makes sense. So I'm fine with Hawk being this strong, this big, everything like that. That works for me. Another thing that works for me, I do like the combo move, Nightmare Sins, right? I do like all their attacks compiling together to properly overwhelm Cath, and specifically go through trapping him in this eternity by taking advantage of his weakness. That's really, really cool. I like seeing Cath's different forms, like this interesting mixed hybrid form between his small form and his human-esque appearance. This design in particular, I really, really do like, even if I don't fully get the reference, I'll really admit. I don't entirely know. But regardless, all of brain, kick it back in, brain, kick it back in, brain, kick it back in. But I like the designs for Cath. His desperation is kind of interesting to see, but at the same time, the one massive critique I have for all this is that let's say there is a new main villain, right? Let's say that is the case, right? We're not even gonna, we're gonna pretend like it's not a debate on whether or not a new main villain. We're gonna assume that Cath's quote unquote removal here is truly properly death, even though he literally can't die, right? This one right here, because it's split. But at the same time, I think this chapter is being dragged down by the chapters before it, because ultimately all this Elizabeth had to die, Hawk had to come out, all because the Sins were stupidly out of character and incompetent. Not just stupidly, and that's bad. I'm not really gonna sugarcoat or defend that. That's bad. But once again, it's the idea of, okay, looking on the macro narrative, we got rid of our main villain without even having our titular characters do it, or really have much of a dynamic or interaction with him. And on top of that, we had our old heroes do it, and they did it basically. I've completely forgotten again. Gosh darn it, I need to wrap up this review, bro. I'm so EP. But regardless, with it being the case, Cath's end here is uncertain. But let's say it is, right? We're not going to pretend that it's not. We're going to assume he didn't go back to Camelot. He was actually annihilated here somehow. So we beat our main antagonist in this chapter. But Cath, being the main antagonist, is only the fault of Nakaba in previous chapters, so I can't blame this chapter for that. Then it does sort of show us how the Sins would properly, which last chapter did as well, actually ganking, which does work actually really well. And I do like the artwork. So overall, like, I think I'm going to give the chapter itself a W. I think the end of it, though, is like, this didn't need to happen. Elizabeth didn't need to die. Hawk didn't need to show up. It's all because of the randomly generated incompetence of the Sins in order to, collect. Wait, no, it's gone. It keeps leaving. All right, I have to end the review now. This is probably the sleepiest I've ever been recording a review. That's crazy. Probably not. Probably a blowout review out there. I was sleepier. But regardless, Elizabeth didn't have to perish. Hawk didn't have to show up. I'm glad both did show up and perish, just because I need a little bit of stakes in the series. Do I think Elizabeth's actually going to stay dead? Not really. Do I think Cath's actually going to stay gone? Not really. But I'm interested to see what the next path is. That's my main point. There it is. I say it's a worthy chapter. If you made it all the way in this video, please leave. Get some sleep. That's what I'm about to do. Let the shower and get some sleep. So regardless, other things what you're watching, leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that leads to notifications so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, you're going to have a page down below. You support me for as low as $1. Get them on. Exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reactions to the series I have to review, including this very series right here with a 20-minute live reaction. You could just, darn it, see, I messed up the outro too. I'm that tired, but 20-minute live reaction to this very review to this very chapter and all future chapters of Fourknights of the Apocalypse and a lot of previous chapters of Fourknights of the Apocalypse. Your name at the end of every single video, not just on the main channel, but on the second channel that got the reaction, link in the description down below and in the card in the upper right-hand corner. On top of that, I do have a link to my Twitch down below. I stream every Friday, 8 p.m. ES Tizzle. Feel free to roll through. We yap, we chat, we have a good time. On top of that, I do have my Ko-Fi down below. We drop 5 minutes for a short video, 20 minutes long video, or any means at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'm EB enough. I may have to make my thoughts video just in case I miss anything. But EB enough. I want to thank you so much for watching. Once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Bag on the Pencil, writing off. Alright, lady, give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, J2MA, Buddha Ura, Yuki Ally, Grim, Ollie, The Boy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Tim Thomas, Kaving, ORXN, Logan Guzman, Dead Mean, Keon Stewart, Donovan McIntosh, BNA DNA, Edwin Igbinoba, Straw, and Tavius Mitchell, Superflame Zero, Weary Exile, Alex Kenny, Todd, The Practical One, Landon Clapwick, Heath Nelson, CAET, Jagoda, Plant Crone, Blast, Brandon Payne, Black Sage, Multi-Batman Superman, Salims, Joe Bean, Sleepin' John, The Young Family Pastel Pandora, Mo City King DKG, Andreen Bonet, Akulari Baba Tunde, at JDog2656, Union Eye, Marisol Boyd, Funny Dude, Athenzi Shear, Magic, Sino King, Sheesh King, Aswin Hedi Presetia, JMB KD, CCC, Enzo, Kitty Liddy, Gerald Harris, Dino, and Victor Jacobs. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our line art tier patrons, A+A, Dured Zoen, Kevin Encarnacion, Lil Kodo, Midnight Lord 21, and Sean. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our Ink tier member, Shrimpo the 4th Shrimp 06. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our digital art tier members, J Warrior and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons, Walking Minows,